What's up, everyone? It's Peter Tragos, the lawyer you know, and on today's episode, we're going to react and dig into what happened when the 14-year-old tourist from Missouri died on a ride in Orlando at Icon Park. And we're going to talk about what a personal injury lawyer would look at in this case to prove negligence on the part of the park and all of the things that add up to a recipe for disaster when you really dig into this case. And now that we've seen it happen, what needs to change in Orlando and Florida at theme parks in general to make them safer for the patrons that come and the tourists that come to ride these rides? If you haven't already, take a second to subscribe to our channel and like the video if you're interested in this content. It's a really sad video today. It's always sad when there's a loss of a life, especially of a young one like a 14-year-old who just goes to an amusement park. And to give us some background and context of exactly what happened, we're going to watch a news clip from the witness. A lot of people have seen a video of the child falling off of the ride. We're not going to play that video, but we are going to play some clips that were taken from that witness that recorded the video of him actually falling off of the ride, and he was there with his friends recording it. So we're going to start out giving context and giving kind of a factual basis to this video in this case by listening to someone who was there and who was recording everything.
I'm definitely still in shock that it happened.
Ivan says Thursday was supposed to be a regular night out on the town with his friends. They decided to try out the new freefall ride at Icon Park.
430 feet. That's great. Coming down 75 miles per hour.
Ivan says he had his cell phone out to record his friend's reaction after the drop, not even realizing what his video ended up capturing. We're freezing the video here, choosing not to show the moment 14-year-old Tyree Sampson falls.
When I heard that he was 14 years old, my heart sank. I'm heartbroken about it.
Ivan says his friends were just 2 seats away from Tyree.
This could have been one of my friends that it happened to. It's not what you would expect from a ride in the heart of Orlando. You know, we're known for our amusement parks, for our thrill rides.
It's still under investigation how the boy fell, according to the sheriff's office.
Were there any red flags?
Right from the beginning.
In Ivan's video, you can see one of his friends question the ride restraints.
Why doesn't this have like the little click, like the seatbelt? Yeah.
So right there, that was important. If you heard the worker say, there ain't any. You're asking about a seatbelt? There ain't any.
They were asking if they had that additional seatbelt. You know, in most rides, you have your harness that pulls down on you, but you also have the additional secondary seatbelt.
But this doesn't have that.
This does not have that. It's really concerning, especially being a brand new ride, not to have that. It was concerning to me, and me not even being on the ride, it was extremely concerning.
About 30 seconds after Tyree falls, ride employees ask each other about the harness.
Did you check it? Yeah, the light was on. You guys are sure you checked it?
Yeah.
Ivan says his prayers go out to Tyree's family.
All right, so right there, you also heard the worker say, did you check him? Yes, the light was on. So the light was on doesn't necessarily mean you checked him, but what did the worker mean by the light was on? Well, according to reports in the company that runs these kinds of rides, there's not supposed to be a seatbelt, and the ride is not supposed to even be able to operate unless all the harnesses, the pull-down harnesses, are locked. Okay, and this was almost, it seemed like a feature of the ride. You heard him say 430 feet up and it goes 75 miles an hour. We're going to get to whether that is how these rides were supposed to be designed or how we always in America want to go bigger, 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 bigger and push the limits. But let's look at a video that was made when the ride first came out, when they were featuring it. And this is, I think, somebody on YouTube that is a reviewer of rides. And let's see what they think.
We're about to go on the tallest freestanding drop ride in the entire world.
Yes, over 430 feet. We're going straight up, we're going to tilt forward, and then we're going to come back down at up to 75 miles an hour. Now, I've done Falcon's Fury over
That's
before.
what I was about to say, yeah. That's the biggest I've done.
This is going to be almost double that height, significantly faster, and I think a whole lot scarier. So,
And
it's just luck.
It's a true drop as well. They said that we're going to detach from a piece of almost anything.
Actual true free fall, not just an elevator cable pulling you down. Yeah. So I'll be holding on really tight to these restraints.
No seatbelt. Crazy.
No seatbelt.
No secondary.
So they again describe how it's the biggest ride in America. I'm sorry, the biggest ride in the world, and how they've been on other big rides. This will be biggest, and they're going to hold on to these restraints. No seatbelt, and they look at each other like. I mean, they still decide to go on. So that's going to be an element of an inherent risk of making this decision, of putting yourself out there, putting yourself in this danger. That is going to be an element of all this, but you're trusting that they're doing things properly. You're trusting that they're following certain policies and procedures and certain safety protocols, right? You're allowed to do things like this because of all of those rules. Now, before we get into the standards and the safety protocols and what they're supposed to be doing, let's talk for a second about notice. Did they have any notice that this could potentially be dangerous, right? It's almost laughable in a situation like this because this ride is inherently dangerous. But again, if everything is always in place, the first death and the first injury, a big company like this is always going to say, we had no notice, we thought everything was safe. And as we've talked about before on this channel, that is not good enough. You cannot do things wrong until somebody dies and then change the way you do things. You have to do things in a reasonably safe manner. But to make matters worse, this is not even the first death on this ride at this park. A 21-year-old worker a couple years ago, while doing a safety check on this ride, fell to his death in a similar fashion. So they are on notice that this machine can malfunction and does malfunction, and when somebody does malfunction, they die. So the notice requirement is checked immediately, in my opinion. And that's something we always look into: other injuries, other deaths on a similar ride, in a similar situation, and we have that here. We obviously have humongous damages in a wrongful death case of a minor, where his parent and legal guardian, who's already been interviewed and said, this is a kick to the stomach, no money, no words, no nothing is ever going to make this rider ever going to make him come back.
Sorry is not going to take it back. And no monies, no nothing in the world could replace that young man. The young man, bright future, been taken away from him and over a ride.
The damages are astronomical in this case. But there are a couple other elements I want to talk about. First, what is their duty, right? We have duty, breach, causation, damages. We have the causation and the damages. His fall from this ride caused him to die. But the duty and the breach is what we're going to focus on now. So when we talk about duty, you heard the witness say, we're Orlando. We're known for our rides. We're known for theme parks. We're known for Disney, for amusement parks. People come here for rides. And they expect those rides to be safe. So let's talk a little bit more about this company that runs these rides. There's tons of different potential defendants, right? We have the person that manufactures the rides. We have the workers. We have the company that owns the amusement park. We have the company that owns the ride. Slingshot or something is what the company's called. So there's lots of different defendants. But let's focus on the actual potential duty and negligence in this case. Now, when we talk about where this ride was manufactured and where it came up with, well, it wasn't founded here in America. This is actually a foreign concept of free fall rides. And this was dreamed up by a company called Fun Time. Okay, this kind of idea. And if you look at Fun Time's website, they think the original ride and idea for this was it was supposed to be a portable ride holding only 25 riders and going up approximately 260 feet. But if you look at what Icon Park was doing, they were pushing those limits. It would allow 40 riders instead of 25, so going bigger there. And it was 430 feet tall. So 65% taller than the original ride. It's also not portable, it's permanent. So when you look at what the company Slingshot did, they took an idea by Fun Time, they applied it to making something bigger. And again, just because you make it bigger or change the way you do it doesn't automatically mean that you're negligent, doesn't automatically mean that you built it improperly. But when you think of an idea, and obviously Fun Time wanted to create a high, fast flying ride that's going to scare people, they want it to be safe. And they felt like the limits were 25 riders and 260 feet high. But when you go bigger, faster, with more people, it's going to be more dangerous. So you have to take extra safety precautions. And I think a big question is going to be, should they have had the secondary belt? We want to focus on machines and making things better and pushing things and progressing. And those machines, the light doesn't turn green unless everything's locked. But it doesn't take much for one harness to mess up, which is exactly why rides like you go to Busch Gardens, they have that second safety belt. And people that go on these rides and are avid riders, they know and they notice, just like the witness's friend asked in the video, just like the people reviewing the ride, we showed you that video, they all noticed that there was no secondary seatbelt. So if just patrons that ride these rides think there should be a seatbelt, why wouldn't the manufacturers, why wouldn't the owners want to put a seatbelt? It's not that expensive, and that's actually something we talk about in trials like these. It would have cost them $25 extra, I'm making up that number, times 40 to make this ride safe. Because one of the elements is you can't ask companies to spend $1 billion to make a ride a little bit safer. I mean, it seems crazy, but that is one of the elements. It can't be unconscionable. It can't be something that no company would do. But I'm pretty sure, in one night, it would pay for itself if you spent the extra $25, $50, $100 per seat on these 40 seats to put that secondary safety harness, that seatbelt, in place. And it would be up to a jury to determine whether or not that was reasonable. And I think any reasonable juror would decide they should have had that secondary seatbelt. Let me know in the comments if you agree or disagree by putting secondary seatbelt if you agree. Because machines are going to malfunction. That's why you have to have backup safety in place, in my opinion. So, next, what kind of inspections are necessary? Well, that depends on how large your theme park is. If you're at Disney World or a Busch Gardens where you have over 1,000 employees, you inspect your own rides and you have your own regulations. But Florida actually has a Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services that regulates how often things need to be inspected at smaller theme parks. I'm not sure exactly which category Icon Park falls into, but they need to have policies and procedures. Either they're written for them or they're written by an organization like FDACS. There are multiple investigations going on right now as to whether or not they followed those plans and procedures. But how does it work in a civil case? How does it work in a wrongful death case? Well, there are two ways to prove someone's duty was breached and that they were negligent. First, that either their own procedures or the government procedures were not followed. So there are safety procedures put in place and you did not follow them and you knew they were in place or should have known they were in place. That's the easiest way. But the next way is if there were safety procedures in place and they were followed. Sometimes at Busch Gardens, you'll see rides running empty. They're doing safety checks, or with a worker on them, like someone died on this ride, they're performing safety checks. Sometimes even those safety checks are not enough. Because if you have those safety checks, if you have those policies and procedures in place and someone still dies based on a malfunction, it still wasn't safe enough, and you're allowed to argue that. And how you argue that is a reasonably safe manner. Are the procedures in place? Are they doing things that are reasonably safe? Are the workers checking them properly? Are they running them properly? Is the green light enough of a safety check, or should they go pull on all the harnesses? If anybody's been to a theme park before, you know the workers usually come by and tug on the harnesses, tug on the safety belts, whatever it may be. So are the safety procedures in place safe enough? And it's almost like obviously not, because they malfunctioned and somebody died. And if they would have had the belt in place, maybe he would have been saved. And is that not the purpose of the belt? I'm sure there's going to be an expert in this case that testifies that's why you have the belt. You always need the belt. The belt would have avoided this disaster. So their own policies and procedures weren't followed, or their policies and procedures that they did follow were not safe enough. And that is, again, a jury question. So people like you that are potential jurors are going to make this determination. Now, a lot of people are going to ask, and rightfully so, what about a waiver? Don't you sign a waiver when you go to a place like this? And my answer is usually yes. Usually you do sign a waiver. Usually you sign it either when you pick up your ticket or when you order your ticket online. But if you go to the website, the only terms and conditions I could find on Icon's website were this, where it shows what you can't bring into the park, what you can bring into the park, what you can do, what you can't do, that Icon Park reserves the right to use videos or pictures that they get of you while you're on their property. But I don't see anything waiving any liability for injuries at the park. Now, that doesn't mean there wasn't one. That doesn't mean they didn't sign one. I just couldn't find one with some quick Google research. Because I have seen some things saying there are jury trial waivers and arbitration clauses saying that if you are going to sue Icon Park, you forego a jury trial and go to arbitration. And sometimes that's the case. Sometimes you can get around them. But usually there are legal ways to get around these liability waivers if they're general. And if you did not do what you were supposed to do, that I had this reasonable condition and I had this reasonable belief that you were making this ride safe, and that's why I signed the waiver and went on it, and you were just negligent, even grossly negligent, causing my injuries, there are legal ways to get around these general blanket liability waivers that waive all negligence and wrongdoing on a company like this. And there are public policy arguments against that you can understand, because we don't want people signing their life away in order to ride a ride, stepping out to their death just to have a little fun. Now, I do think there's an element on the person that makes a decision to go on these rides. I love roller coasters. I love rides like these. I actually pass on the free fall rides, which is funny enough, but a lot of my friends and family love the free fall rides. So there is an element of you're undertaking this inherent risk and you're making this decision to go on the ride. But that, again, will be weighed by a jury. And if this theme park and these defendants really want to point the finger at the 14-year-old victim and saying it's partially his fault, be my guest. Juries usually hate that. But there may be a percentage of fault on him. But the vast majority of the fault is on the company that manufactured these rides, that owns these rides, that owns this theme park, that runs the safety checks and the employees and how they're trained. They'll dig into their training policies and procedures. Because if you watch the video, it doesn't look like they're doing much. And when they're asking questions, it's like the manager doesn't even know what the person's doing during the safety check. The person in the safety check is not even sure if they did the check right. They can't even answer these questions. And again, it's traumatic. This is a traumatic experience for everybody, so they're not going to have perfect memory right at the time. But I have a feeling that if and when the training procedures and the safety procedures and protocols are dug in on Icon Park, it is not going to look good. I think there absolutely will be a wrongful death lawsuit, and I think they will win, and I think they will win big. I think it is just catastrophic and grossly negligent on the part of Icon and this park and the manufacturer of this ride to go too big, too fast, and not safe enough. And that is what caused the death of this 14-year-old boy. He was not a small kid either. It's not like he slipped through a harness that was locked down. Something went wrong on this ride, and he fell to his death 400 plus feet. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. If you have any questions about this case, if there's anything you want me to dig into deeper. Law enforcement's doing an investigation, but during their interview, they said they're just really trying to investigate whether it was intentional or an accident. And at this point, all signs point to an accident. So this isn't going to be a criminal investigation. This is going to be a civil wrongful death lawsuit in Orlando, in Florida, in my home state. So we're going to know the rules. We're going to know the courts. We're going to know the judges. We'll probably know the lawyers involved. So we're going to follow this case and we'll see what the outcome is. But I really want to know what questions you all have about how this process works in Florida, in the home of Disney World. And we'll talk through how this case progresses. So we're going to follow this lawsuit as long as you guys are interested when a lawsuit comes, which I'm sure it is. So you can let us know you're interested by liking the video and subscribing to our page and putting in the comments that you want me to follow this case. But for now, that's all we've got. Until next time. Thanks for watching this episode of The Lawyer You Know. If you like this content, please share it with your friends. Make sure you subscribe to our page and like our videos. If you want some interaction, get in the comments and we'll be sure to get back to you. If you want to know any more information about our firm or this page, you can find out in the description or visit tragoslaw.com. We post multiple times throughout the week, so make sure you hit that bell so you can get the notification and not miss out on the next episode.